Alright, so here goes the gimbal, the 04 on it. And let me see if I can kind of summarize how it's been going. So, as you can see, obviously the 04 camera, the 04 Pro, is a lot heavier than the 03. So for one, you know, the wobble issue I had with the 03 was kind of like this right here. You know, so front heavy, it's just easy to slingshot this thing back and forth, right? So basically, before I even ran it, I went ahead and added a counterweight on the back. Instead of 2 pennies like I was using on the other, 2 or 3 pennies, can't remember, I threw a couple quarters on the back, right? Then the thing about that is when I actually tried starting it up, it would do this thing where it would kind of calibrate, and then it would get to this point right here where it would just go up and down, up and down. It would never finish calibrating. And I figured a way around that was to kind of trick the Hall sensor. So when it was kind of wigging out like that, I could hold a magnet in just the right spot and get it to sort of finish its process right. Then after that, it seemed like it was fine. The problem was when I wasn't actually droving around after that, I was getting a whole lot of pitch jitter, right? So maybe I can show that. Everything else actually seemed kind of fine, but when I was driving, for whatever reason, I was just getting this jitter like this on the pitch. So basically what I did was I kept playing around, changing the firmware, changing settings, blah, blah, blah. And I finally decided to just take the counterweight off. And when I did that, I realized that it would actually calibrate properly, and I was the dum-dum that was making it mess up. So essentially, then what I did was I just added a little bit of hot glue counterweight right there, right? My thought was, all right, well, it seems to be working fine now. Now let's see if I can help get rid of that pitch jitter, right? So the funny thing is now it seems like what it's doing after I just ran it is the pitch kind of seems all right now, but now it seems to have a little bit of yaw jitter, right? So I feel like I'm back where I started, where I do have this yaw problem. So I got a couple options. First, I'm going to try upping the torque on all the motors just to see how that goes. If that doesn't work out, I'm going to actually just see how much rear counterweight I can get away with before the Hall sensor starts wigging out, right? So I guess we'll have to see how that goes. Alright, so as it turns out, I've actually got the motor torque all the way up for all 3 axes already, so guess I might have to do the counterweight thing. But one thing I wanted to point out, unless I'm just kind of remembering this wrong, I want to say on every single one of these gimbals that I've got, the PWM2 channel, or how they label that according to the manual, which I've actually got right here. So basically you got ground on the right. So ground is the black wire on this PWM connector. Can't remember if it's yellow or what, but whatever this middle signal wire is there, I'm pretty sure that ended up being the home function, right? For all 3 of them. Might be remembering that wrong, but I'm pretty sure I was fumbling with them all at first until just kind of randomly figuring that out, and I just keep failing to mention it. Alright, well, I tried the 2 pennies on the back and got the problem again. So now I just threw the 2 quarters back on because that's what I had before, and that's what seemed to give me good yaw stabilization, right? So basically now, this is the initial problem I had. Kind of start up, do its thing, and then it'll kind of just get stuck. This infinite loop of going up and down, up and down. So you're not going to get anywhere with it when it's doing that. I'm not quite sure what it is. I did go back online with it, with the software. You know, I'm not really sure there's a whole lot can be done there. I would imagine if I went and removed that counterweight, perhaps maybe that would solve the problem. But when I put the 2 pennies on, saw the problem, then I took them back off, and this thing was still doing that, right? So whatever the cause is, I really don't know, but I'm just going to go like this take these magnets and try to put them. See, if I hold it in the wrong spot, it'll wig out. It's kind of hard to do this through the camera, but try to find the right spot to hit that Hall sensor, like right there. Now it's basically going to act normal and stabilize. But the question is, how well is it going to work with this entire setup now? And do I really want to be doing that with the damn magnets every time? And I guess it's not a big deal since, you know, I'm not really driving this thing every day. But I don't know, if this ends up giving good stabilization, then, you know, still might need to tweak stuff here or there. But if I have to use the damn magnet, I guess I'll be cool with that, right? Alright, so this was my first test when I started it up with just the 2/4 as a counterweight on the backside, right? Nothing else. That's just the first way I had it set up, and I had to use that little magnet trick to get it properly calibrated at first, right? So if you could tell, it actually looks pretty good, except for I got this tiny little bit of pitch jitter I was talking about. So the thing is, I mean, this actually looks better than the second test I'm going to do later, but it's just, the jitter was a little bit worse than what I would get with no gimbal at all, right? So you can kind of see it, you know, it'll pick up pretty bad like that, and that's just, it just looked better with no gimbal. So my thought was like, damn, you know, if I could only just get rid of that, this thing would be pretty much perfect. But this was with no counterweight on the camera portion itself, right? Because again, the 04 Pro is like twice as heavy as the 03, but it's also a little more pronounced when it's sitting out front heavy on the gimbal. So I just assumed that, you know, just all that extra weight was giving the pitch axis a hard time. I'm not totally sure if that really went away in my second test after I added a little bit of like hot glue counterweight, you know, because you'll see in this next test, what I've got more of is like a yaw jitter side to side. So, you know, if it comes back to it, and if I really have to, let's just say if this just doesn't work out and I have to pick one setup over the other, I'd probably go with this setup, but it would probably bother me too much that it's just jittering around too much relative to no gimbal at all, that I'll probably just say screw it and go back to no gimbal, just use a regular servo. Don't really want to do that, but we'll see how it goes. Alright, so right here is where I took the counterweight off the back. I only had the little bit of hot glue on the pitch axis, and I had this one set up to where as soon as I turned the gimbal on, it would fully complete its little calibration process, right? I didn't need to use the magnet, basically, so I was kind of hopeful about this. But as you can kind of see, at least from what it looks like to me, now I don't really see the pitch jitter anymore, but what I see is the yaw jitter. It's kind of, you know, jiggling side to side now. It also kind of looks like there is a little bit of the pitch jitter as well, right? But mostly what I see is this yaw problem. So this is actually like much worse than what it was. I think I actually switched in and out of FPV mode just to kind of see what the difference would be, but I didn't see one, right? By the way, this is also on 6S now. I'm using 2 3S batteries in series. Goes pretty damn fast. So fast that you really need to learn how to use the e-brake, especially on slick surfaces. I mean, you're gonna crash into something without using that brake and doing a quick 360 or something, quick 180 like that. But yeah, this is just pretty annoying. Also, that little bit right there is a little bit annoying. How the pitch doesn't lock, and when you go up obstacles, it gets a little disorienting, you know. But it's all right. I can deal with that. I've dealt with it already. But yeah, I mean, you can see basically what's interesting to me is the 04 Pro is like way heavier. It seems like it's got way more balancing issues on this exact same gimbal than the 03 did. But with the 03, first testing of that, I mean, that thing was just like going nuts. It wasn't really like a little small annoying jitter. It was like when you went off-road, it was bouncing all over the place.
So maybe I can get it to do a little more of that. Just kind of mostly on flat surfaces. I think when I actually do pick up going off-road pretty quickly, it does actually wig out quite a bit more. So again, I mean, that I'm pretty sure that's the result of that huge imbalance on the yaw axis. But like I say, I haven't been able to really correct that because when I tried that, the damn thing wouldn't finish calibrating. Yeah, so if you go slow enough, like right here, I mean, it's not too bad. But yeah, you pick up speed, it gets pretty bad. See my little, I had to readjust the camera. My little rear view deal kind of got distorted, and I haven't really played with that. Can't see my voltages the same way I could before the camera placement. But no big deal. I can still read them. And I will say, someone else mentioned this, that they would prefer to not use a gimbal. That way they can more accurately see how the world around them is tilting left and right, and it just gives them a better idea of their bearings at the time in the 360 plane, in the 3D world. But otherwise you just have to kind of keep your eyes on which way the car itself is tilting in the video, right? You get used to it, but I can somewhat agree to that concept. It's actually a little bit more, it's a little more natural to not have the gimbal. It's just annoying on the eyes when you're getting vibrations and driving. So it's a trade-off. You see, I have to drive super slow to have it not wig out. Yeah, so that the way it's wigging out right here, that's more similar to how the 03 was doing at first for me before I kind of tweaked it a little bit, right? So this is just not going to work. That looks super bad. And that right there, I can tell, is a combination mainly of the yaw and a tiny bit of the pitch. So again, I've added a little bit more pitch counterweight, and I'm going to have to take that out to test it yet again. But unfortunately now I'm back to square one where I have to use the stupid magnet trick to get it going. Again, it's not such a big deal, but I already know one day I'm going to forget the damn magnet and take it out and drive somewhere, and I'll get there and get ready to go and think, oh crap, I don't have this damn magnet, and now I literally can't do anything with it, right? So yeah, I will say as far as the 6S, man, that thing really moves. It's a lot harder to inch around now. I probably will have to go censored in the future, but yeah, that thing really moves. I'll say it's kind of hard to get used to how fast you're really moving when you're using it, and you really should be careful because it's real easy to zoom around and think you're going to be able to brake in time and then just not do it, right? So as a matter of fact, I can kind of compare how this is doing with the Typhon. Alright, so right here is the Typhon with the 03 on it. This is actually the 03 air unit footage, but as far as like what it looks like stabilized from the gimbal, I mean, it looks about the same, right? It does real good at stabilizing. I don't have any problems. The only problem this gimbal had was just that same issue with the home function. I think it ended up being on PWM2 no matter what. But the whole point I wanted to mention here was that, for one, I went and put different tires on this thing, like racing tires, and this is with a 19 tooth pinion, right? So the thing is, the tires I had before, like the stock tires, the diameter on them is a little bit wider than these tires. So technically I'll get more speed with those, but then it's a relative thing compared to how much better these street tires grip than those, right? And these shouldn't balloon out because they're belted. The problem right now is this thing, I'm riding around on basically like a sheet of pollen, right? Pollen is all over the place out here. You can see it kind of spraying out in the rear. So I have like real crappy grip here. But either way, it still goes fast enough to where with this size tire, the grip that I've got is basically like the upper limit of how fast I think you should really be going with these things, right? So remember, this is the gimbal that's like unprotected. It doesn't have a roll cage or anything. When I was on a 17 tooth pinion with the stock tires, pretty sure I could maybe hit like like 50 something, maybe 55. I don't know. It all depended, right? Depending on how new the tires were and the grip of the street, you know, the battery, all that stuff, right? When I went to the 17 tooth pinion, I was immediately, or the 19 tooth pinion, I was immediately blown away like by how fast I was going. Things even looked like I was going fast in the 03 footage, you know, which is hard to do because of the perspective. You basically look like you're crawling in the 03 footage, even if you're going pretty fast, right? So if it looks like you're going fast in the 03 air unit footage, you're probably hauling ass, all right? So this thing can haul ass, but again, the downside is, especially with these tires, you really have to like be careful when you're driving, because all it's going to take is just the tiniest little bump and you're able to hit the chassis in a way that'll flip this damn thing. And that's pretty much what happened to me. And it's about to happen. I guess I could just go ahead and cut to that. But, you know, right now you can kind of see this thing is really moving, but it's just kicking up a whole bunch of pollen, and you know, it's just not able to get top speed. But you could, yeah, that thing's going. Right, see, just right there I could have almost crashed. If I hit that little tiny pothole any differently, I would have flipped this whole thing. So that's why I say, I mean, driving around really fast like that, it's fun, but you're gonna mess the car up eventually doing that, unless you know you have an immaculate place to drive on, no little defects and whatnot, right? So then now right here, it's funny because I was getting ready to leave, but right here I just decided to just, for whatever reason, kind of speed down this sidewalk, and just the height of the car, the clearance of it, and the way the suspension is set up, I just happened to hit this little part at just the right speed that flipped the thing over, and it immediately basically took the camera out. Boom, right? So while it wasn't a difficult fix, all I did was actually rip the gimbal supports out, the little carbon fiber thing, and then I broke my antenna mount, but everything was still good. It was easy to fix. That's really liable to happen when you're moving that fast.